Chapter 65-54. A sinister glint appeared in by Liuchuan's eyes. There are a few places in the Demon Slaughter Mountain range where demons gather. Although the probability of heavenly treasures appearing is very high, the danger is also incomparable to other places. 2 years ago, the number of cultivators who died in this tunnel was astonishing. Even Bai Qingli almost couldn't come out when she first entered. Look at how famous this place is, but why isn't anyone else here? Hearing Bai Liuchuan's words, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman looked around. Indeed, there was no one else here other than them. They immediately understood. Other than the larger teams, small teams don't dare to come here, Bai Liuchuan continued. I see. Guan Yi came to a realization as he secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, he had come with Bai Liuchuan. Otherwise, if he had come alone, he might have fallen into danger. After all, he had just arrived in Xi'an City not long ago. His understanding of this place couldn't be compared to the local tyrants. Guan Yi, I know you came here to get a good ranking. After we see the results, we will set off to other places. Although this place isn't suitable for us to obtain points, there are still many other suitable places, Bai Liuchuan said with a smile. That's great. Guan Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Although they had some gains in the past 2 days, he felt that this speed was still too slow. If he continued to delay like this, the possibility of him obtaining a place in the rankings was too small. Since Bai Liuchuan had someone to help him, his points wouldn't be too little no matter what. However, he was different. He didn't have such a team to help him accumulate points. Zhong Yiluan is quite smart. He actually came up with such a method. This method of death is indeed quite suitable for the three of them. Yun Xiaoman's eyes lit up as she said with a smile, Brother Bai really has a way. Only this way can we completely vent our anger. Just thinking about it makes me happy. Since the three of them have already entered, we can also go over and take a look. I believe we will soon hear their screams. Bai Liuchuan took a step forward and slowly walked forward. Guan Yi and the other two followed closely behind. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two entered the tunnel, they were extremely careful. They slowed down their footsteps and tried not to make any noise. According to the records, there are very powerful man-eating beasts here. They are even stronger than Radiant Sun Stage cultivators. The three of us are definitely no match for them, Di Beichen transmitted. Then what should we do? Gong Jun was stunned. Did that guy write down a way to break it? We just need to walk forward a little bit and try not to be noticed by the man-eating beasts. On the left, there is a rock blocking a small path that only allows one person to pass. As long as we can take advantage of the time before the beast reacts, we can safely pass through this tunnel. Di Beichen stared ahead. If everything was as described in the book, then they really had nothing to worry about. However, if the situation was different, it would be more troublesome for them to solve this round. Gong Jun heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. This guy is actually quite reliable in this aspect. There shouldn't be any problems. Chapter 65-55. This man-eating beast should also be of the dark attribute, right? Bailey Hongzhuang observed their surroundings. They had only just stepped in when a thick dark aura rushed towards them. This aura might be difficult for other cultivators to accept, but to them it was very easy. Indeed, most of these monsters are of the dark attribute, Gong Jun replied. Then as long as we release the dark attribute, I don't think we'll be targeted too much, right? Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with wisdom. Thinking back to when they had faced the skeleton army, this was the same method they had used. It should work. Madam, the method you mentioned can indeed be tried, but I don't know if it will be effective. Gong Jun looked nervous. I've heard that this man-eating beast is very scary. Previously, many people had directly become its food. Even if I'm going to die, I don't want to die like this. I don't want to die without a corpse. Hurry up and shut your crow's beak. Xiao He could not help but speak up. The place was already gloomy from the moment they entered, and after hearing Gong Jun's words, they suddenly felt a cold wind blowing around them. It was extremely unsettling. Gong Jun also knew that he had said something wrong and immediately stopped talking. He followed the others and slowly walked forward. Everyone's footsteps were as light as possible. Dark energy lingered around them, trying not to be discovered. Roar, a beast's roar attracted the three's attention. Immediately after, they felt two powerful auras right in front of them. At this moment, they were pacing back and forth anxiously. The three of them were extremely tense. Their footsteps were even lighter, trying not to be affected. The book was right. The rock in front of us should be the rock mentioned in the book. Di Beichen looked at a rock on the left, and a glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang followed his gaze and looked forward. Indeed, there was a large rock in front of them. This rock looked very hidden. If it were not for the book's reminder, most people would not have noticed this place at all. Upon closer inspection, this rock looked as if someone had purposely blocked this place. Let's try to move this rock away, try to make as little noise as possible. D. Baichen's expression was serious. Now that the light in this tunnel was extremely dim, even if they could only hear some sounds, they could tell that there were definitely many monsters here. Once they moved this rock, no matter how little noise they made, they would definitely be sensed. Therefore they had to hurry up and rush in as soon as they moved the rock and close it. Later on, don't fall behind, D. Baichen said. Bailey Hongzhuang and Gong Jun nodded slightly. Both of them were serious and didn't dare to make a joke. The man-eating beast seemed to have sensed the approach of an unfamiliar aura, and its footsteps became noticeably faster. Rumble. When the three of them got closer to the rock, they realized that the rock was much heavier than they had imagined. However, they only hesitated for a short moment before they sped up and moved it away. When the man-eating beast heard the commotion, it understood that there must be other living creatures nearby. It immediately rushed over. Quickly go in. D. Baichen's anxious voice sounded. Chapter 65-56. Ah! A scream suddenly sounded. Gong Jun's face was filled with pain. Gong Jun, how are you? Are you okay? At this moment, the three of them were stuck in the passage. Bailey Hongzhuang was next to D. Baichen, and next to her was Gong Jun. From her current angle, she couldn't see Gong Jun's situation. It's over, it's over. I was bitten by a man-eating beast. I heard that man-eating beasts are highly poisonous. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes showed a trace of worry. Then let's quickly break through. Take this detoxification pill first. Hold on for a while. When there's more space, I'll immediately treat you. Thank you, madam, but I might be dying soon. Gong Jun's face was pale, and his face was filled with pain, but he still tried his best to gradually turn the stone back to its original shape, perfectly fitting it into the gap. The people who came later would never have thought that there would be a passage behind the giant stone. The only thing they could do was to walk through the man-eating beast. Gong Jun, don't worry, there won't be a problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was nervous. They didn't know the fatty for long, but from his reaction just now, they could see that Gong Jun treated him with sincerity. In this kind of critical moment, it was best to see a person's heart. He was willing to put himself in danger for D. Baichen. This was something that many people wouldn't be able to do. D. Baichen's face was also a little nervous. The two of them quickened their pace and walked forward. Because the path was too narrow, the three of them could only move sideways. Naturally, their speed couldn't be too fast. However, as they gradually came out, the space became a lot bigger and there was a faint light, bringing a trace of light. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly came to Gong Jun's side. The clothes on his arm had been bitten by the man-eating beast, but when she saw Gong Jun's arm, her expression suddenly changed. Madam, am I going to die? Gong Jun closed his eyes, not daring to look. You're about to die. Bailey Hongzhuang rolled her eyes. Gong Jun's face paled. How can I be so miserable? My immortal treasure pavilion business has just made some progress. How can I die so quickly? The heavens are really unfair. I think you want to be beaten to death. Bailey Hongzhuang sat on the ground, her whole body relaxed. D. Baichen noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions and took the opportunity to look at Gong Jun's arm. He immediately understood what was going on. Gong Jun's sleeve was only bitten. His skin was not injured at all. You're not injured at all. D. Baichen's voice slowly rang out. Gong Jun said, Boss, you don't have to comfort me. I know I'm going to die. Open your eyes and take a good look. You're really not injured. I can clearly feel my blood constantly flowing. The stinging feeling is very obvious. Gong Jun did not believe it at all. Madam, even if you want to comfort me, you don't have to lie with your eyes open. Who is the one who is lying with his eyes open? D. Baichen, I'll leave it to you. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head. She really did not want to talk to this guy anymore. It was simply a waste of her feelings. Take a good look. Only then did Gong Jun slowly open his eyes. When he saw that his arm was safe and sound, he couldn't help but widen his eyes, and a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Chapter 65-57. Gong Jun stood up and his face was full of astonishment. I clearly felt pain in my arm. I really didn't lie to you. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the dazed Gong Jun and said, The pain you felt should be the tingling sensation caused by the saliva of the man-eating beast on your hand. However, your skin wasn't bitten, so you won't be poisoned. Don't worry. Hearing this, Gong Jun carefully looked at his hand again. Sure enough, it was sticky and looked disgusting. Oh my god, it's so disgusting. Gong Jun took out a wad of tissue and immediately wiped the saliva on his arm. Only then did he feel that the pain in his body was much better. This man-eating beast is too disgusting. There's so much saliva. After seeing that Gong Jun was safe and sound, Di Baichen was completely relieved and said, Gong Jun, your scream just now was not bad. Go over and scream again. Gong Jun was slightly stunned, but he quickly understood Di Baichen's meaning. Boss, I'm afraid it won't work if I scream alone. I'm afraid we have to create some fighting sounds. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and smiled. Zhong Yiluan and the others wanted them to come to Song Ming. They might as well attract these guys and give them a big gift first. The three of them looked at each other, and the plan was already formed in their minds. Bang bang bang. The sound of fighting spread out, followed by heart-wrenching screams. The long sword fell to the ground and everything returned to calm. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 2 pig trotters and gave them to Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Zhong Yiluan and the others had been waiting outside after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others go in. They were just waiting to listen to the movements inside. However, after the 3 of them went in, they waited for a while but didn't hear any sound. Suddenly they began to wonder. Captain, why is there no movement until now? Could it be that the situation inside has changed? A complicated look appeared on Zhong Yiluan's face. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case. It's like this every year, and there hasn't been any news of the human-eating beast being killed. It should have always been here. Then why hasn't there been any movement after so long? Bai Luchuan frowned. He was waiting to hear the commotion inside. If the 3 of them didn't die inside, wouldn't their efforts be in vain? Noticing Bai Luchuan's displeased expression, Zhong Yiluan said nervously, Young Master Bai, don't worry. There will definitely be no problems. Luchuan, they have some ability. Maybe they can hold on for a while under the attack of this man-eating beast. Guanyi said slowly. When he thought of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen, he felt that these 2 guys had a lot of tricks up their sleeves and were not easy to deal with. If he died so easily, he would feel that something was wrong. These man-eating beasts are very strong. They haven't eaten for a long time, so their fighting strength should be very shocking. Bai Luchuan pondered. This feeling made him very unhappy. However, just as everyone was thinking about it, a sharp scream suddenly came from inside. Upon hearing this voice, a look of joy appeared on everyone's faces. From the looks of it, the situation hadn't exceeded their expectations. However, after this scream, it suddenly fell into silence and no sound could be heard. Chapter 65-58. It wasn't just Yin Xiaoman. Everyone present had a look of doubt on their faces. Logically speaking, once they were confronted by a man-eating beast, there should be endless screams. It was really strange that there was only one sound. However, this doubt didn't last long. In just a short period of time, screams came one after another. As the screams disappeared, everyone could vaguely hear the sound of chewing. As they were only standing outside and were still quite a distance away from the tunnel, they couldn't feel it clearly. Even so, they were still sure that the sound was chewing. Many cultivators had a look of discomfort on their faces. Even though they despised Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2, such a way of dying was not something an ordinary person could accept. A sneer appeared in Bai Luochuan's eyes. These 3 idiots probably didn't know what was going on until they died. However, with their level, they were indeed not worthy of knowing all this. After this man-eating beast is full, it will want a rest. If we wait until then to enter, the danger will be greatly reduced. As long as we pass through this tunnel as soon as possible, there won't be any problems. A smile appeared on Zhong Yiluan's face as he looked at Bai Luchuan ingratiatingly. He should have done well in this matter. Bai Luchuan nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. You did well in this matter. Hearing this, Zhong Yiluan immediately heaved a sigh of relief and felt at ease. Brother Bai, since there's no danger inside, why don't we all go in and take a look? Yin Xiaoman looked curious. She really wanted to go in and see what happened to Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2. Although she also felt that it was a pity that Di Baichen died like this, she felt a burst of joy when she thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's disgusting face disappearing from this world forever. She wanted to see it with her own eyes. Bai Luchuan had already planned to leave, but after hearing this, he couldn't help but stop. He turned his head to look at Guanyi and said, Do you want to go in? Guanyi looked at the pitch-black tunnel in front of him. Even though he had heard all kinds of rumors about this tunnel, he still wanted to take a look. Luchuan, can we go in and have a look? Upon seeing this, Bai Luchuan chuckled and said, Why not? I wanted to take you to other places first, but since you are so interested in this place, let's go in and take a look. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman smiled. They were really curious about the demon-slaughtering mountain range. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Gong Jun, who had also started to chew on the pig trotters. She could not help but think of Bai Li Yanche, Xiao Xuanzi, and Linger. Come to think of it, other than Linger, all of their contracted beasts were gluttons. Now even the friends he made were like this. It really made him speechless. You don't say, this pork trotter tastes really good. Gong Jun lowered his voice and laughed while eating. It's very chewy. The corner of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. Then you should eat more. After sensing that there was an aura gradually approaching the tunnel, Di Beichen gave a look. Gong Jun, Xiao He and Xiao Bai stopped. Chapter 65-59. Zhong Yiluan walked at the front of the team with Bai Luchuan and the other two behind him. Be careful, young master. It's very dark here and the dark energy here is very dense. Even if you light a match, it will be extinguished very quickly. It won't be of much use. Bai Luchuan understood. Everyone be careful. Raise your 5 senses. Their eyes were obviously useless here, but they could still sense the surrounding situation through their other senses and elemental energy. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman carefully followed behind. As soon as they entered, they had already sensed that the dark energy inside was far denser than outside. This feeling was like a sealed land. The dark energy had been fermenting here for a whole year, and when they arrived they naturally felt the dense dark energy. Roar! When the man-eating beasts heard the series of footsteps, a fierce light flashed in their eyes. They, who had been hungry for a long time, finally found their prey, and there was a hint of excitement in their ferocity. When Zhong Yiluan heard the sound, he couldn't help but frown. Logically speaking, the man-eating beasts had just eaten, so their reactions shouldn't be so sharp. However, he didn't take it to heart. The man-eating beasts that have eaten their fill don't have to kill people. However, everyone still has to be careful when passing through. Don't hurt the man-eating beasts, otherwise, you will be the one at a disadvantage. Everyone nodded one after another as they looked around with solemn expressions. This dark environment gave people an indescribable pressure. They felt that the air was gradually being sucked out and even breathing became difficult. Young Master Bai, we will go and scout the path first. It won't be too late for you to come after confirming that there are no problems, Zhong Yiluan said loyally. Bai Luchuan nodded in satisfaction. Okay. Zhong Yiluan then turned to look at the few people who were on good terms with him and transmitted his voice. Today is a good opportunity to perform. As long as you perform well, your future will be limitless. Not only do you have to take good care of young Master Bai, but you also have to give him face in front of his friends. Do you understand? Captain, don't worry. We all understand. Everyone nodded one after another, as if they had already understood all of this long ago. However, just as Zhong Yiluan and the others were moving forward, 2 beastly roars suddenly sounded. Then everyone felt a terrifying gust of wind sweep past, and a heavy landing sound suddenly sounded. Bang! One of the cultivators was directly sent flying by a terrifying force. His body slammed heavily into the wall, and 2 of his ribs broke at the first moment. The sudden situation caused everyone to fall into a temporary panic, but they quickly recovered. Zhong Yiluan held his sword with a solemn and tense expression. Beast, you are courting death. In the next moment, Zhong Yiluan's figure flew, and attacked and fiercely. At the same time, the other cultivators didn't dare to delay and attacked at the first moment. Even though the man-eating beasts their combat power, they still couldn't be underestimated. Was they were with their strength there's this Anesiluan's young masters Bai's white. Su when Bai's when we master, tease, he is. Chapter 65-60. A terrifying power erupted as an incomparably tyrannical aura swept through the area. Mixed with the furious roar of the man-eating beast, it broke the original tranquility of the tunnel. Originally, Zhong Yiluan was not too worried about the strength of the man-eating beasts. According to the information he received from the previous few times, a Radiant Sun Realm cultivator would be able to dodge the man-eating beasts as long as they were nimble enough. However, when they exchanged blows, he realized that the situation wasn't like that at all. The man-eating beast's strength was just too terrifying. It wasn't something he could resist. How could this be? Zhong Yiluan was dumbfounded. What kind of problem was this? Be careful. A scream rang out. Zhong Yiluan raised his alertness to 200%. He clearly knew how terrifying the man-eating beast's strength was. If he wasn't careful, he would lose his life. At this moment, a cultivator had already been ruthlessly stepped on by the man-eating beast. At the same time, a hand was stuffed into the man-eating beast's mouth like food. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream rang out. Immediately they felt a chill in their hearts. This sound made their hearts ache. After the man-eating beast ate some food, it became even hungrier, and the speed of its actions became even faster. What's going on? Could it be that the man-eating beast isn't full yet? Yun Xiaoman's beautiful face was dyed with a trace of paleness. Her body constantly retreated and leaned against the wall. At this moment she began to regret coming here. She wished that she could immediately leave this tunnel. It was just too terrifying. Bai Liuchuan's expression was also very ugly. He couldn't understand and said, logically speaking, it shouldn't be like this. What exactly is the problem? Guanyi also had a face of worry. Under such circumstances he felt that even his brain was numb. He couldn't think of any clues at all. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were separated from the main group by a wall, they could still hear the commotion inside clearly. Immediately, a faint smile appeared on the faces of the three of them. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. They deserve it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Now that they had finished watching the show, it was time to get down to business. I heard that there are a lot of demon spirit herbs in this tunnel. These guys will probably waste a lot of time here. Why don't we go and get the treasure first? Hearing this, Gong Jun nodded repeatedly. Good. Let's go and snatch all the heaven and earth treasures inside. I'm sure their expressions will be very interesting when they come out. Di Baichen also walked outside. His footsteps were very fast, but when he landed, it was very light. It was as if he was stepping on a feather. There was no movement at all. In comparison, it was undoubtedly much more difficult for Gong Jun to achieve this. Fortunately, the sounds of battle were ringing out in the tunnel, and no one would notice their movements. After walking for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly see the scene in front of her. This place was like a garden, but it was different from the gardens they usually saw. Almost everything here was black, and even the flowers were mostly black. There were also some bright red flowers blooming in this darkness, which made them look particularly dazzling. Are these flowers or demon spirit herbs? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of complexity in her eyes. Chapter 65-61. Di Baichen's brows furrowed in worry. They were all stumped by this. They really didn't have any understanding of these things. Boss, I heard that there are a lot of demon spirit herbs in this tunnel. Since we don't recognize them, we might as well take as many as we can and judge them after we bring them back. Gong Jun had a casual look on his face. It was just that simple to use his linear thinking to think of problems. Anyway, they would bring back the useful and useless ones. They would be able to distinguish them when the time came. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also said, then let's pack these things up first. Take as many as you can. This wasn't a good idea, but it was the best idea at the moment. Xiao He and Xiao Bai didn't delay. They quickly jumped down and began to help pick the demon spirit herbs. Be careful when you pick the demon spirit herbs. Many demons are plants. If you're not careful and get attacked, you'll inevitably be injured, Di Baichen reminded them. They had already read a lot of related content from the books. There were drawings of some plant demons. These demons were hidden among the plants and weren't easy to find. It was said that many people had suffered in the previous demon slaying competition because of this. Once they encountered a poisonous demon, it was very likely that they would lose their lives. Everyone nodded. Although their hands moved quickly, they still carefully paid attention to these plants in case they encountered a demon that was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. In fact, everything was just as Di Baichen had warned. There were indeed some demons in here. Bailey Hongzhuang held a dagger and directly cut down a demon. The plant gradually turned into mist and disappeared. There were many plants in this circular garden. If they were to slowly pick them up, it would take a lot of time. Therefore, everyone knew that it was impossible for them to pick everything here. Therefore, everyone chose to pick some plants that looked like demon spirit herbs and put them away. Boss, what should we do later? Gong Jun asked as he picked the immortal spirit herbs. If they left now, they wouldn't lose anything. It was just that their original plan was to take all the points of these guys. If they didn't take them, they would have fallen behind the others by a lot in the past few days. Di Baichen's gaze fell on the dark tunnel in front of them. He then withdrew his gaze and said, when they clear this path, we'll go back. Hearing this, Gong Jun and Bailey Hongzhuang were slightly stunned, but they quickly understood. It seems that we have to continue pretending. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. But when they see us, their expressions should be very funny. If you sent someone to scout ahead and the other party came back later than you, it would definitely be a very interesting feeling. However, Bai Luchuan and the other two are also in this team. Once we appear, they will know that their plan has been exposed. In their anger, they might lead everyone to attack us. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. She couldn't let her guard down in this situation. Facing these despicable people, it would be troublesome if they were to be schemed against. Wife, this will depend on you. Di Baichen looked around and suddenly smiled. Chapter 65-62. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 3 people and 2 beasts who could freely pick the immortal spirit grass, Bai Luchuan and the others were in a much worse situation. After Zhong Yiluan was seriously injured, he finally understood that the man-eating beast hadn't eaten anyone at all. The man-eating beast is still in a hungry state. Zhong Yiluan revealed a look of horror. He couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang and company had clearly disappeared. Logically speaking, they should have already become the man-eating beast's food. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have rushed in. However, the man-eating beast had already treated all of them as food. Its attacks continued. Although they were barely able to deal with it, no one was a match for it. After all, the man-eating beast's combat strength in a hungry state was much stronger than an ordinary Radiant Sun Realm cultivator. Could it be that the 3 of them have already made it through? A look of surprise appeared in Guan Yi's eyes. He quickly recalled the scene when they had entered and his mind immediately went blank. There's no smell of blood. There's no smell of blood. Hearing Guan Yi's words, Bai Luchuan frowned. The surroundings were filled with the smell of blood, but Guan Yi had said such baffling words. He really didn't know what he meant. Brother Yi, what do you mean? Yun Xiaoman asked in confusion. When we came in, we didn't smell any blood. The moment this was said, everyone present was alarmed. After thinking for a moment, they understood. If the 3 of them had really been eaten by the man-eating beast, then they should have smelled a strong smell of blood when they entered. However, when they entered, there was no relevant smell in the entire tunnel other than the dark aura. Bai Luchuan and company's faces turned ashen. If all of this was true, then the sounds they had heard outside. Were they being tricked? Ah! A scream sounded as a cultivator became the man-eating beast's food. Zhong Yiluan was already seriously injured. Taking advantage of the man-eating beast's eating, he ignored everything and rushed forward like a madman. As long as he rushed out of this range, he would at least be safe. After all, there were still many people behind him. The man-eating beast wouldn't give up on a group of people just to chase him alone. As Zhong Yiluan rolled and disappeared nearby, the cultivators in front began to take advantage of this opportunity to rush inside. Young master, take this opportunity to rush over. Zhong Yiluan's anxious voice rang out from inside. Upon hearing this voice, a hint of hesitation appeared in Bai Luchuan's eyes. He only thought that with so many people here, it wouldn't be too late for him to take action when it was safer. Big brother Bai, they've all started to retreat. Should we also retreat? Yun Xiaoman noticed that the cultivators behind her had unknowingly started to rush to the back, and a trace of panic suddenly appeared on her face. The cultivators at the front had already thought of ways to avoid the man-eating beasts, while the cultivators at the back were rapidly retreating. If they didn't hurry up and make a decision, things would be troublesome. Only then did Bai Luchuan notice the situation behind him. Immediately, his expression turned extremely ugly. Young master, come over quickly. Otherwise you'll be in danger. Chapter 65-63. Luchuan, we can't wait any longer. Guan Yi's face also revealed a trace of nervousness. Bai Luchuan nodded slightly. The current situation made him extremely dissatisfied, but he also understood that it was impossible for these guys to rush up again. Let's go. Bai Luchuan's elemental energy surged as his body quickly flew out. At the same time, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman's speed was not slow at all. At this time, as long as their movements were slightly slower, they might be caught by the man-eating beast. Ah! Yun Xiaoman suddenly screamed. She realized that the man-eating beast was actually rushing towards her. Immediately she was completely dumbfounded. Xiaoman, be careful. Guan Yi hurriedly shouted. Perhaps it was out of instinct, but Yun Xiaoman felt that there was a figure in front of her. Without thinking, she immediately pushed the figure forward. Following that, she rushed forward as if she had gone crazy. Ah! Another shriek rang out, and after hearing this familiar voice, everyone's expression changed. Young master, are you all right? Zhong Yiluan's face was pale. If anything happened to Bai Luchuan, he really couldn't bear the responsibility. Who pushed me just now? Bai Luchuan's voice rang out as he gnashed his teeth. Because of that step, his arm was directly scratched by the man-eating beast. The intense pain kept coming, and what made him even more alarmed was the man-eating beast's poison. It was said that man-eating beasts were highly toxic. Anyone who was close to or injured by them would die if they couldn't find the antidote quickly. When Yun Xiaoman heard this roar, she immediately panicked. She recalled her subconscious actions earlier. If she hadn't pushed Bai Luchuan out, then the person who was injured would be her. Fortunately, the light here was too dim and there were many cultivators around. As long as she didn't admit it, Bai Luchuan probably wouldn't be able to recognize her. Zhong Yiluan quickly rushed in front of Bai Luchuan and said, "Young master, are you injured? Quickly help me out." Bai Luchuan's face was ashen. He was extremely dissatisfied with Zhong Yiluan's performance. However, he also understood that in this situation, the most important thing was to leave this place first. Otherwise there would be more trouble. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished setting everything up, she heard the screams coming from the tunnel. She raised her eyebrows slightly as if she was watching a good show. Previously they had not fought with the man-eating beast, but just from the aura they had sensed, they could tell that the man-eating beast's strength was terrifying. Thinking about it, Zhong Yiluan and the others must have suffered great losses in the battle. If they were caught off guard, their losses would only be greater than before. At this moment, they heard the sound of footsteps gradually approaching their location. The three of them looked at each other and immediately rushed back into the original path. Speaking of which, it was quite interesting. This path seemed to have been specially opened up by someone. There was a huge rock blocking both the front and back. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to find any clues. As the three of them walked into the passageway, they planned to return to their original spot and enter from the main road again. These man-eating beasts should have eaten their fill by now, so the danger of them entering should be much lower. While walking, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to hear Guan Yi's voice. Chapter 65-64. Hearing this voice, the three of them weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they stopped and listened to the commotion outside. Where are those three fellows? As soon as he walked out of the tunnel, Bai Luchuan roared in exasperation. This was simply infuriating. They had schemed to come up with such a scheme so that the three of them would die without a burial ground. Now that the three of them had disappeared, he was the one who had suffered such a huge loss. Although Zhong Yiluan was already seriously injured, after hearing this voice, he hurriedly shouted for the cultivators beside him to search the surroundings. They had to quickly find these three fellows. Only by doing so would Bai Luchuan's anger be appeased. Otherwise they would be the unlucky ones. However, as everyone circled around and didn't see a single person, their expressions became very blank. "Captain, the three of them aren't here. How is this possible?" Zhong Yiluan's face was filled with disbelief. "I clearly saw them enter with my own eyes. How could they disappear into thin air? Could it be that the three of them didn't come in at all?" Yun Xiaoman was also dumbfounded. However, they had clearly seen the three of them enter first and heard their screams and the movements of the man-eating beast. No matter which angle they looked at it from, it was impossible for them to go out. "Could it be that they've already walked past here?" Guan Yi asked. "Perhaps they realized that it would be very dangerous to continue following you, so they took the opportunity to leave." "That's possible." Zhong Yiluan's expression was complicated. He looked at Bai Luchuan with some fear and immediately retracted his gaze. He originally thought that the plan was flawless, but he never expected such a change to happen. He was afraid that he would be punished by Master Bai. A bunch of trash. Bai Luchuan's face was ashen. It was unknown whether it was because of anger or poison, but his entire face looked abnormally ferocious. "Brother Bai, your arm is injured. What about the poison?" Yun Xiaoman pretended to be concerned and asked. Everyone followed Yun Xiaoman's gaze and noticed that the wound on Bai Luchuan's arm looked extremely ferocious. The bright red blood had already been dyed with some black, and there was a faint tendency for it to fester. "Luchuan, didn't you already take the antidote pill? Is it useless?" Guan Yi hurriedly asked. Bai Luchuan couldn't hide the depressed look on his face. This man-eating beast's poison has always been terrifying. Even if one takes an antidote pill, it will only temporarily slow down the spread of the poison. If I want to cure the poison completely, I'm afraid I'll have to go out and find a pharmacist. Won't you waste a few days going back and forth? Guan Yi was shocked. It took them 3 days to get here. Even if they didn't kill any monsters along the way, it would still take them close to 4 days to go back and forth. The entire competition would only last for a month, so these few days were extremely precious. Damn you! Bai Liuchuan's face was filled with anger. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. When I find them, I'll definitely cut them into pieces. Zhong Yiluan, I'll leave the matters here to you. You must obtain points as soon as possible. If you really can't, then recruit some more cultivators. However, you have to take care of this matter properly. You can't leak this information out. Chapter 65-65. Due to the poisoning, Bai Liuchuan's speed of obtaining points had been forced to slow down. If he were to punish Zhong Yiluan, it would only make the situation worse. Upon hearing this, Zhong Yiluan immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He felt relieved. Young master, don't worry. I'll definitely obtain points as soon as possible. Bai Liuchuan nodded slightly. All right. Young master, if I see the 3 of them in the future, should I kill them directly, or, if we haven't fallen out, then watch the 3 of them first? I want to deal with them personally. Bai Liuchuan's eyes were sinister and vicious. Not only had they played with them, but they had also caused him to suffer such serious injuries. If he didn't teach the 3 of them a lesson personally, he wouldn't be able to vent the hatred in his heart. As Bai Liuchuan's words fell, everyone present couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang and company were doomed. Liuchuan, your injuries are so serious. Do you want me to accompany you back? Guanyi asked with concern. Bai Liuchuan's gaze immediately softened. The matter of being poisoned and injured made him very unhappy. However, for Guanyi to say such words at such a time, it was clear that he truly treated him as a friend. There's no need. I have no choice now. I can only delay it for a few days. You still have to work hard to get into the top 10. Time can't be delayed. But your injuries, don't worry. I'll find someone else to accompany me. Don't worry. Then be careful. Yun Xiaoman was also feigning concern. She recalled her actions and felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, her surroundings were pitch black and she didn't see anything. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to withstand Bai Liuchuan's anger. Bai Liuchuan actually wants to deal with us personally at this time. What a fool. Gong Jun had a look of disdain. From his point of view, any enemy had to make a move from the beginning. The more it was like this, the faster they would lose. Fortunately, this fellow was a fool. Otherwise, their situation would be much more difficult than it was now. Boss, should we go out now? Gong Jun turned to look at Di Beichen. They had originally wanted to take this opportunity to threaten Zhong Yiluan so that he would give them all the points, but now that the main character had appeared, they were afraid that things would go out of their control if they went. I'm not going out, Di Beichen said calmly. Then we'll go out after Bai Liuchuan and company leave. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows slightly. They still needed to make use of this team. If they directly exposed everything now, they would not be able to make use of them. This was not a wise move. As long as the 3 of them leave, it will be much easier for us to control this team. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally understood Di Beichen's plan. For the current them, it was best not to make a move on things that could be easily solved. It was best to be in their best condition at all times. I'll listen to you, Gong Jun said with a smile. After such a thing happened, Guanyi and Yun Xiaoman sent Bai Liuchuan out of the tunnel and didn't stay for long. The 2 of them were actually very embarrassed. If it weren't for them, Bai Liuchuan wouldn't have entered the tunnel, so he naturally wouldn't have been injured. Therefore, they didn't have the face to stay here to obtain the demon spirit herb, so they simply left. After sensing that Guanyi and company had left, Bailey Hongzhuang and company walked in from the entrance. Chapter 65-66. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. Such a strong smell of blood was extremely uncomfortable in this environment. However, they had already seen such a scene several times, so they weren't too uncomfortable. In comparison, Gong Jun really couldn't stand it. Oh my god, these man-eating beasts are really scary. I can even hear the sound of chewing. Gong Jun hugged his arms, feeling goosebumps all over his body. These man-eating beasts are eating. Let's be careful and jump over. Di Beichen's expression was solemn. Even if they were enemies with Zhong Yiluan and the others, they knew that the other party's strength wasn't weak. Everyone was a Radiant Sun stage cultivator, but they had suffered such heavy losses at the hands of these man-eating beasts. Could be seen that these man-eating beasts were really terrifying. Let's go. Everyone protect yourselves. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed. Her mind was already tense. Through her mental energy she could sense the location of the two man-eating beasts. Just as they had heard, the man-eating beasts were chewing on the corpses and hadn't noticed the movements of the three of them. Feeling the aura from a closer distance, she felt that the strength of these two man-eating beasts was probably not much different from the elementary immortal stage. It was no wonder that so many people had died at their hands. So. The three of them were like the wind and immediately jumped out. When the man-eating beasts that were eating sensed the aura approaching, they roared angrily, put down their food and rushed over. The three of them flashed through the gap like green smoke, causing the two man-eating beasts to miss. After Bailey Hongzhuang landed, she didn't dare to stop at all. She quickly rushed forward for a distance before stopping. At the same time, Di Beichen appeared beside her. "Boss, madam, wait for me." Gong Jun ran over from behind, panting. In a short time his forehead was already sweating. "You ran pretty fast. You weren't hurt, right?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "That man-eating beast is so scary. If I don't run faster, I'm afraid I'll lose my life." Gong Jun's face was full of fear. Now that I think about it, what they said is true. The reaction speed of the man-eating beast is indeed much slower after eating. When we first came in, the man-eating beast's speed was much faster. Indeed. Di Beichen nodded. He had also noticed this. If Zhong Yiluan and the others had not miscalculated, they would definitely be laughed at by the man-eating beasts. If that was the case, they would not be in too much danger. There are quite a few monsters in this tunnel. We have to be careful. Their surroundings were still pitch black, but with the help of their mental strength, even though they couldn't see anything with their eyes, everything around them was clearly reflected in their minds. "Boss, we still don't have any points. Why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to hunt monsters and earn some points?" Gong Jun suggested. "All right." Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang didn't object. If Bai Luchuan wasn't injured, the others wouldn't have left the tunnel. It wasn't a bad idea to give them this opportunity. The sound of metal resounded in the tunnel. After exchanging blows, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that most of these monsters were of the darkness attribute. Despite being plants, their combat strength was not to be underestimated. Chapter 65-67. The points on the scoreboard began to gradually increase. A moment later, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen in surprise and said, "You killed the monsters so quickly?" The three of them had split up to hunt the monsters. However, she found that Di Beichen was much faster than her. Di Beichen was also a little surprised. These monsters didn't seem to have any resistance. "I just made a move and they died." Such a smooth situation was different from everyone's usual description. Not only that, when he first entered the demon slaughtering mountain range, he also felt that it wasn't difficult to deal with the monsters. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was silent for a moment and said, "I think it might be because your dark attribute is extremely pure, so it's faster to deal with these monsters." "Maybe." Di Beichen frowned slightly. He vaguely felt that things shouldn't be like this, but thinking about it carefully, there was no other explanation. Gong Jun silently looked at Di Beichen and said with a smile, "Boss, you're naturally gifted. This is what you should do." Just as the three of them were hunting the monsters in the tunnel, Zhong Yiluan and the others were also collecting the demon spirit grass outside. "Captain, I don't understand how the three of them passed the man-eating beasts." The man stood beside Zhong Yiluan, his face full of confusion. Could it be that their strength is very high, and everything before was just a disguise? According to his previous observation, the three of them were not very strong. Except for Gong Jun, who had stayed in Xi'an City for a few years, the other two guys had just ascended. Their strength was definitely not that strong. Under such circumstances, the three of them were able to leave smoothly. It was too illogical. Zhong Yiluan's expression was also very complicated. "I don't understand this either. If their strength can easily avoid the man-eating beasts, then their strength is very terrifying." The two of them suddenly looked at each other and suddenly felt a little creeped out. Sure enough, the people that the young master asked them to deal with were not simple. Just as the two of them were talking, a series of footsteps suddenly came from the tunnel. Hearing this voice, the expressions of everyone present changed, and they all turned towards the source of the voice. At this moment, only a portion of the cultivators had arrived. Many of them had already retreated to the entrance after sensing the danger of the man-eating beasts. Who would be the one entering at this moment? We're finally out. The situation inside is completely different from what Captain said. His voice was heard before he even saw him. However, after hearing this familiar and annoying voice, everyone's expression became extremely interesting. Is that Gong Jun's voice? Didn't they leave already? Why are you in the tunnel? What the hell is going on? Could it be that they came in after us? Before seeing Gong Jun come out, everyone had already started discussing. This situation was really too strange. There was clearly only one path in this tunnel, so how could they not see Gong Jun and the other two along the way? This did not make any sense at all. However, when everyone saw the three familiar figures with their own eyes, everyone's expression was as if they had seen a ghost. Captain, why are you guys here earlier than us? Gong Jun looked at Zhong Yiluan in surprise, his face full of surprise. Chapter 65-68. Looking at Gong Jun's surprised face, Zhong Yiluan couldn't help but break down. Earlier than you? I want to know why you are so late. Gong Jun, what took you so long? Zhong Yiluan looked at the three of them. Especially when he saw that the three of them were unharmed, and only Gong Jun's sleeves were torn, his face looked even worse. If it weren't for the three of them, they wouldn't have lost so much, and they wouldn't have angered Master Bai. Gong Jun eagerly walked over with a trace of a puzzled smile on his face. He looked harmless to humans and animals, just like a fatty who didn't know anything and was easy to deceive. Captain, we followed your orders and went into the tunnel. We wanted to check it out, so we will inform you. Not long after we came in, we felt the breath of the man-eating beast. We felt that the beast was very powerful. When we were about to call you, there was nothing under our feet. We didn't know where we landed. After that, we realized that it was an illusion. It took us a lot of effort to get out of the illusion. As Gong Jun's voice fell, everyone was even more surprised. They had never even thought of such a thing. However, looking at the calm faces of Gong Jun and the other two, it didn't look like they were lying. All of a sudden they couldn't tell. Illusion? How could there be an illusion in the tunnel? Zhong Yiluan didn't believe it. Gong Jun, however, had a serious look on his face. Captain, I'm not lying to you. Otherwise you saw us come in and we didn't go out. How could we appear after you? Zhong Yiluan looked at Gong Jun suspiciously. These words happened to be the biggest doubt in his heart. Although he also felt that the news of the illusion was very unreliable, thinking about it carefully, this was the only way to explain this situation. I wanted to warn you, Captain, but the illusion appeared too suddenly. I only had time to scream. That's not right. Zhong Yiluan frowned. I heard you scream first and then I heard Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest. You can't tell me that you fell into the illusion in batches, right? At that moment, Zhong Yiluan's eyes became sharp, as if he had something on Gong Jun. He didn't give him any room to think. Not only Zhong Yiluan, the other's eyes became unfriendly. However, Gong Jun's face was calm. That's not the case. First, I came into contact with a man-eating beast. It only used its mouth to bite open my sleeve, and its saliva landed on my hand, causing me great pain. When we were dodging, we accidentally fell into the illusion. Everyone's gaze landed on Gong Jun's arm. They discovered that his sleeve was indeed torn, and there was a large patch of red on his skin. It was as if a man-eating beast's saliva had landed on his arm. Zhong Yiluan retracted his gaze, and the doubts in his heart were gradually resolved. I didn't expect these fellas to be so lucky. They could escape under such circumstances. Captain, what should we do now? The man asked. If Master Bai knew that it was such a mistake, he would be even angrier. Chapter 65-69. Zhong Yiluan's mood was complicated. He thought for a while and said, tell the others not to reveal our intentions. Since the master said to keep him alive, then we will wait. As long as the master comes back, they will die. The man nodded. Leader, don't worry. I will tell the others. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the man. Even an idiot could guess that the two of them were discussing what to do. It was a pity that they had heard everything clearly from behind. So, they knew that Zhong Yiluan and the others would not do anything to them. On the contrary, they would still be in the same condition or even better than before. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Zhong Yiluan's body. Captain, you seem to be injured? It's fine. Zhong Yiluan waved his hand awkwardly. The other party was unharmed, but he, as the captain, was seriously injured. It was really embarrassing to think about it. Do you want me to take a look? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. No need. Zhong Yiluan's expression was solemn. He now felt that these three fellows were very evil. They clearly looked very simple, but they had suffered a great loss in their hands. He decided to stay put for a few days and wait for Master Bai to come back before making a decision. Bailey Hongzhuang did not insist. She walked to the side and sat down to rest. There are a lot of demonic herbs here. If we go further, there will be monsters. We will stay here today. After we deal with the things here, we can leave. Everyone nodded in agreement. Even though they didn't walk very far today, after the incident with the man-eating beast, everyone felt very tired and even felt a little drowsy. Night gradually fell. After everyone killed the demons in the vicinity, they took out a formation to prevent the demons from approaching at night. Only then did they rest at ease. Almost as soon as the formation was completed, everyone could no longer suppress the sleepiness in their hearts. They all closed their eyes and fell into a deep sleep. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the cultivators sleeping around her, a trace of a sneer appearing in her eyes. "Madam, your medicine is really effective." Everyone fell asleep just like that and they didn't feel anything wrong at all. Gong Jun looked at the scene in front of him in astonishment. This medicine was really too powerful. These were all Radiant Sun Realm cultivators. They did not feel anything. "My medicine's effect is also good." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "Will they wake up?" "Don't worry. They will not wake up for a few hours." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen and said, "Beichen, we should move." Di Beichen slowly stood up and walked in the direction of Zhong Yiluan. When Zhong Yiluan woke up, he saw the three faces in front of him. He screamed. "Ah!" As he sat up, he found that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had already sat down beside him. Their faces looked casual and did not seem to be a threat. Only then did he feel at ease. "What are you doing here?" "Leader, we have something to discuss with you." Chapter 65-70. Seeing Zhong Yiluan's arrogant look, Gong Jun gave him a backhand slap. "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to my boss like that?" The sudden slap left Zhong Yiluan dumbfounded. He stared blankly at the three people in front of him, wondering if he was dreaming about them. He actually dreamed of these three fellows? "Boss, don't tell me this fellow has been beaten silly by me?" Gong Jun couldn't help but ask when he saw Zhong Yiluan looking at him in a daze. He muttered to himself, "Could it be that cultivators at the Radiant Sun Realm are so weak? Can a single slap make someone stupid?" Zhong Yiluan felt a burning pain on his face and realized that he wasn't dreaming. He had really been beaten by the fatty. "How dare you hit me?" Zhong Yiluan stood up angrily, his face flushed red from anger. Today he had already been reprimanded by Luchuan because of these three fellows. It was already good that he didn't take the opportunity to kill them, but they actually dared to find trouble with him. They were courting death. "So what if I hit you?" Gong Jun sneered and extended his hand to slap him again. "You want us to send ourselves to our deaths? Why don't you check if you have the brains to do so?" Upon hearing that, Zhong Yiluan realized that everything the three fellows had said was a pretense. They had long seen through his trick, so they didn't fall for it. Even so, he still couldn't figure out how the three fellows had cracked the trap. Just the thought of it left him shuddering. "Man, man, man." Zhong Yiluan shouted at everyone in panic. At that moment he was already in a panic. After the battle during the day, his injuries had yet to recover. Even though the three people in front of him were opponents he had always looked down on, he was no match for them now. However, when Zhong Yiluan shouted loudly, Bailey Hongzhuang and company wore calm expressions as they looked at him mockingly. "Go ahead and shout. It's useless even if you shout until the sky shatters," Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Earlier, when they had decided to make their move here, she had already drugged this place. However, the effects of the medicine were very slow. Everyone would unconsciously inhale it and fall into a deep slumber. After Zhong Yiluan shouted a few times, he realized that everyone around him was still in their dreams and did not respond. His face turned pale in an instant. He looked at the three people in horror and said, What did you do to everyone?" "Don't worry, he won't die. He'll just be unconscious for a while," Bailey Hongzhuang said lightly. After knowing that the others were not dead, Zhong Yiluan was relieved. He said with an ashen face, "What do you want to do?" "Captain, are all the points you have to give to Bai Luchuan?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked slowly. Zhong Yiluan's expression changed. "What nonsense. There's no such thing. At this point, it's useless for you to talk nonsense with us. We've already seen through it." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent as she ignored his explanation. Di Beichen also said, "What we want you to do is very simple. In a month, hand over all your points to us." The moment that was said, Zhong Yiluan's eyes widened. Without thinking, he rejected, "That's impossible." Chapter 65-71. What do you mean by that? Zhong Yiluan asked in bewilderment. These people can be drugged by me. What do you think you can do? Bailey Hongzhuang said casually. Zhong Yiluan's eyes flickered as he probed. Do you want to kill me? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. If you work for me, I'll naturally spare your life. But if you're unwilling, don't tell me I'll keep you alive if I don't kill you? Why do you think I'll agree to it? Zhong Yiluan quickly thought of a way to deal with it. He wasn't a match for the three of them, so it was obvious that he couldn't take the opportunity to leave. The only thing he could do was to pretend to agree and think of a solution later. Because you were poisoned by me. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. Her pleasant voice was like the sound of nature, but it sounded like a demon's voice in Zhong Yiluan's mind. You poisoned me? Zhong Yiluan widened his eyes. This was what he was most worried about, but what he was afraid of came true. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang said calmly. As long as you give us the points, I'll give you the antidote. Otherwise you can just wait for death. Zhong Yiluan's face was somewhat pale as he said, even if you give me the antidote, young Master Bai will definitely take my life when he knows what I've done. Then what's the difference if I don't want the antidote? Captain Zhong, you are a captain after all. It shouldn't be difficult for you to find a scapegoat. When the time comes, even if you can't avoid being punished by Luchuan, it won't be a problem for you to keep your life. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Zhong Yiluan lazily, ignoring his little tricks. Since the other party could use the man-eating beast to deal with them and gain Luchuan's favor, it was obvious that this person was full of evil tricks. He definitely had a way to escape. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Zhong Yiluan knew that it was useless for him to play dumb in front of the three of them. At this moment, what he regretted the most was not killing these guys directly. If he had done it during the day, there wouldn't be so much trouble now. Alright, I promise you. Zhong Yiluan nodded. At least you know your place. A smile appeared on Gong Jun's face. They had been delayed for 3 whole days and they had finally gained something. Let's go. Di Baichen turned around and looked at the exit behind them. Since the matter had been resolved, there was no point in staying here any longer. Alright, before I leave, I have to remind you of something. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and said, normal pharmacists have no way to neutralize my poison. If you don't believe me, you can try. Of course, you can also ask Guan Yi and the others about how they were poisoned. All the doctors in the city went, but they still couldn't cure the poison. If you don't want to die, don't play any tricks. With that, the 3 of them gradually disappeared from Zhong Yiluan's sight. As the 3 of them disappeared, Zhong Yiluan sat down limply as though he had lost all his strength. He had been hunting geese all day and was finally pecked by the geese. He never expected that he would be schemed against by the 3 of them. He tried to wake up the unconscious person beside him, but he realized that no matter how he shouted, the other party didn't react like a dead pig. His expression turned abnormally ugly. Chapter 65-72. Zhong Yiluan calmed down and thought about it carefully. Guan Yi and the others hated Bailey Hongzhuang so much that they were determined to kill them. Coincidentally, he had heard someone say that Gong Jun was the shopkeeper of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. After connecting all the dots, everything became clear. It turned out that Guan Yi wanted to take revenge for poisoning them. That was why he found Master Bai and tried every means to kill them. He didn't expect that he didn't mention this to him at all. If he knew it earlier, he would have been able to take precautions. Shopkeeper Guan had invited so many pharmacists, but none of them could cure the poison. Presumably, other than Bailey Hongzhuang, no one else could cure him. Thinking of this, Zhong Yiluan's heart turned cold. In this way, he really had no other choice. After exiting the tunnel, Gong Jun couldn't help but ask, "Boss, madam, wouldn't it be a pity if we just leave like this and don't collect those demon spiritual herbs? Don't worry, it will fall into our hands sooner or later." Di Baichen smiled faintly. Gong Jun was slightly stunned. Why is that? Do you think that Bai Luchuan looks like a magnanimous person? Of course not. Gong Jun shook his head, his eyes full of disdain. This person is narrow-minded and vicious. He can't be considered magnanimous at all. So, Zhong Yiluan's harvest will eventually be handed over to Bai Luchuan. Instead of alerting him now, why don't we wait until the time comes to take it from Zhong Yiluan's hands and save ourselves the trouble? Gong Jun's eyes lit up and he immediately understood. Boss is wise. This way we will save a lot of effort. After exiting the tunnel, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 slowly walked forward. There weren't many cultivators in this area. Although Guan Yi and Di Baichen had already left through this path, there were still many demons gathered here. The three of them were not worried that the people behind them would catch up to them. They immediately began hunting monsters here. The more she fought with the monsters, the more Bailey Hongzhuang felt that the aura of these monsters was very similar to the monsters in the desert world and the ocean world. However, so far they had only encountered plants. Other than the two man-eating beasts, they had not seen any other animal-like monsters. As for the two man-eating beasts, because their strength was too strong, she was unable to kill them to understand the situation. The three of them continued forward, killing all the demons they saw along the way. The points on their identity cards gradually began to increase. The next day, when everyone in the team woke up, they found that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two had disappeared without a trace. "Captain, what should we do?" Zhong Yiluan looked at the anxious people in front of him and couldn't help but ridicule them in his heart. If these guys hadn't slept like pigs last night, he wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. However, he still had to continue acting. A trace of panic quickly appeared on his face as he said, "What's going on? If young Master Bai finds out, I'm afraid we'll be in trouble." Everyone's expression changed. When they thought of young Master Bai's angry appearance, they couldn't help but feel guilty. "Captain, why don't we just say that we haven't seen the three of them? Anyway, as long as we don't say anything, young Master Bai won't know." Chapter 65-73. Captain, I think what you said makes sense. This is completely feasible. What happened before has already made Master Bai extremely unhappy. If he finds out that we let them escape, we will definitely be severely punished. Captain, just promise us. Everyone looked nervous and looked at Zhong Yiluan pleadingly. Seeing this, a trace of hesitation appeared on Zhong Yiluan's face. After a while, he nodded, "All right, since everyone has made this decision, then we can't let it slip. Otherwise, things will be even more troublesome." "Captain, don't worry, we will definitely keep our mouths shut." After leaving the team, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two also had a lot of freedom. "Without those people's chatter, I just feel that my whole body is clean." Gong Jun sighed and opened his hands, looking comfortable. Xiao He smiled and said, "I'm already looking forward to the end of the competition. Bai Luchuan still wants to defeat Bai Qingli. I think there's no hope this time. I don't know where Guan Yi and Yin Xiaoman are. These two guys should be dealt with as soon as possible." Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She had originally planned to call a truce, but these two guys were relentlessly looking for trouble. If they were not dealt with as soon as possible, there would inevitably be complications in the future. After this demon slaughter competition, it would be a lot more troublesome to make a move on them again. They should have followed this path. Although the demon slaughter mountain range is not small, it shouldn't be difficult to meet them again in a month's time. Gong Jun said. The three of them hunted monsters as they hurried along. Along the way they had encountered cultivators in 2s and 3s. However, no one had any intention of coming into contact with them. They just pretended not to see each other and continued to fight. "Master, why haven't we seen Yen Che and the others for so long?" Xiao Hei's face was dejected. She thought that after leaving the team she would be able to meet them soon. She didn't expect that after wandering around for another 2 days, she still hadn't met a single acquaintance. In the past they used to be together all day long. Now that they had been separated for so long, she really missed them. "We've been delayed for a long time. Yen Che and the others should have already rushed ahead of us. It's not strange that we haven't run into them yet." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. She wasn't worried that Yen Che and the others would be in danger. After all, they were very clever and would definitely be able to turn misfortune into blessing. Not to mention the time we wasted on our journey, just the day we spent in the tunnel is already a lot slower. Hearing Xiao Hei's words, Gong Jun couldn't help but ask, "Madam, could it be that you know other people in this city?" "That's right," Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. "We'll probably run into each other later. I'll introduce them to you then." "That's great." Just as the 3 humans and 2 beasts were moving forward, they suddenly heard a violent tremor coming from the front. Such a strong elemental energy undulation, his battle aura is very shocking. Gong Jun's face was full of amazement. His gaze had already swept to the front. However, the distance was too far and he couldn't see anything clearly. Di Beichen carefully sensed for a moment and said, "There are many cultivators gathered in front. Why don't we go and take a look?" "Okay." Seeing this, the 3 of them increased their speed and quickly rushed forward. Chapter 65-74. The 3 of them quickly approached the source of the sound. As they got closer, they were able to clearly see the situation in front of them. In their line of sight, the swamp of monsters that covered the mountains and plains looked extremely shocking. There were also many jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards around. At a glance, this place was simply a gathering place for demons. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze swept over these monsters. She had to admit that they were indeed species that she had never seen before. Almost all of them were black, which was slightly different from the monsters that she usually saw. They looked more ferocious and bloodthirsty. The smooth lines on their bodies and the explosive power showed that they must have fought frequently. However, these monsters did not transform into human forms. Screams, sounds of metal clashing, and roars. These three kinds of sounds continued to resound. A murderous and bloody atmosphere gradually spread. The deep black and the dazzling red blended together and turned into a shocking picture. "Boss, what is this place? How can there be so many monsters here?" Originally, when they were hunting monsters, they thought that the Demon Slaughter Mountain Range was a gathering place of monsters. However, compared to the scene in front of them, it paled in comparison. What was a gathering of monsters? This was a real gathering of monsters. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a glimmer of brilliance as he said, "I remember that the booklet also described such a place. This is the place where monsters like to gather the most. Hunting monsters here will undoubtedly increase your points the fastest. However, because there are too many monsters here, if there are not enough human cultivators, we can't act rashly. Once they gang up on him, only death awaits him." Hearing this, Gong Jun shrugged. When he thought of being surrounded by these monsters, he felt a chill in his heart. It was truly terrifying. "Let's go over." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up. "There are many cultivators here now." Looking around, although the number of cultivators was not as many as the monsters, they would not be surrounded. If they went to other places to hunt monsters, their speed would naturally not be as fast as here. This was undoubtedly the most time-saving place. Di Beichen's lips curled into a smile. Both of them immediately flew up. When Gong Jun saw the two of them rushing over, a trace of helplessness appeared on his face. "If you marry a chicken, follow the chicken. If you marry a dog, follow the dog. If you recognize a boss, you have to follow him." A sharp sword appeared in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, and her figure had already rushed into the midst of the demons. Di Beichen did not slow down at all. He completely unleashed the strength of the Radiant Sun realm, killing the demons mercilessly. As the two of them appeared, the surrounding crowd could not help but cast their gazes over. Now that there were more cultivators, everyone felt a little more at ease. "Brother Yi, why are the three of them here?" Yun Xiaoman was in the middle of wholeheartedly hunting monsters when she suddenly saw an elegant white color. She subconsciously looked over. However, when she saw who the other party was, her face turned ugly. Although everyone felt that the three of them were not eaten by the man-eating monsters, she always had a trace of expectation in her heart. Because in that kind of environment, it was impossible for the three of them to pass safely. However, the scene in front of her completely shattered her fantasy. These guys were really safe and sound. Chapter 65-75. When Guan Yi heard Yun Xiaoman's voice, he couldn't help but turn around. His gaze followed the direction of the latter's gaze. With this look, he also noticed the three familiar figures. His expression suddenly became very ugly. However, Guan Yi calmly accepted this result. "I already said that the three of them aren't that simple. If you want to kill them, you will have to spend a lot of effort." Guan Yi's expression was complicated. He didn't know why, but he felt that the three of them were very evil. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen didn't need to be said. But even that Gong Jun, he felt that it was very strange. According to his uncle, these past few years, his uncle had been thinking of ways to suppress him. He even sent people to directly take his life. However, this guy was very lucky. Every time he was able to escape unscathed. "I really hope that Brother Bai can come back soon. If they are here, I think they won't be able to escape." Yun Xiaoman sighed. Her heart was also somewhat regretful. "Xiaoman, these two guys aren't simple. We only have two people now. It's best to stay away from them. Otherwise, once they find us, I'm afraid we will be in trouble." Guan Yi's expression became dignified. He still remembered that time outside the city lord's mansion. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at him with a gaze. He was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang had already remembered this enmity. "Brother Yi, isn't this letting them be too complacent? It's better than losing our lives." After Guan Yi made up his mind, his figure quickly rushed to the side. He didn't plan to leave this place. He only planned to stay a little further away. After all, other than this place, it was too difficult to exchange for enough points in other places. Yun Xiaoman unwillingly followed along, her mind constantly thinking about how to take revenge. Just when she was distracted, a demon took the opportunity to attack her. Bang! Yun Xiaoman's figure was heavily knocked to the ground. A sharp claw mark was left on her neck. Ah! Yun Xiaoman screamed. The intense pain made her neck feel numb. She reached out and touched her cheek, only to find that her cheek was also injured by the claw. Looking at the bright red blood on her hand, Yun Xiaoman's face turned pale, her eyes gradually became sharp and crazily shouted, "My face! My face!" Guan Yi saw Yun Xiaoman shouting like crazy, and the first thing he did was to cover her mouth and drag her to the side. "You're crazy. Are you trying to lure them here?" Guan Yi said angrily. However, Yun Xiaoman couldn't care less about these things. "Brother Yi, my face. What about my face? It's just a superficial wound. There shouldn't be any problems." Guan Yi handed the healing medicine to Yun Xiaoman. "You rest here first." Bailey Hongzhuang was hunting demons when she suddenly heard a scream from afar. She vaguely felt that the voice was somewhat familiar and could not help but look over. However, she did not see a familiar figure and could not help but frown. "Did I hear wrongly? Master, what's wrong?" "Nothing." Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. She put away the doubts in her heart and continued to hunt demons. Chapter 65-76. The smell of blood spread in the air. In addition to the monsters that were killed, there were also injured cultivators. Exclamations and screams alternated, and occasionally there would be a wail. These monsters attacked together. Their combat strength can't be underestimated. I haven't gotten many points and my injuries are already so serious. What should I do? Although I knew that I should bring more medicinal pills to participate in the monster slaying competition, I didn't expect the situation to be so tragic. I don't have much healing medicine left. What should I do? It's useless to regret now. Healing medicine is undoubtedly the most precious thing here. No one will be willing to sell it to us. The only thing we can do is to get points as soon as possible. If we can't, our lives are the most important. Sighs sounded one after another. Almost everyone was hoping for a fluke before the monster slaying competition began. They felt that with their strength they could protect themselves safely. After all, with their situation, it was already very difficult for them to survive in Xi'an City. It was already very difficult to get the cultivation resources needed for daily cultivation, let alone exchange them for healing medicine. However, it was only after they entered that they realized that they were lacking in strength. Their injuries were far more serious than they had imagined. They had only stayed here for 2 days, but they were already injured in many places. If this continued, they could only watch other cultivators get points while they recuperated. Thinking of this, everyone could not help but sigh. No matter how regretful they were, it was useless at this moment. At this moment, a hawking voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Selling medicine, selling medicine. Healing medicine, detoxification pills, I have all the medicinal pills you need here." Following this voice, many people immediately turned their gazes and saw a fatty who had unknowingly set up a small stall on the ground not far away. This small stall was very simple. It was just a piece of linen spread on the ground. What attracted everyone's attention was the things placed on the linen. There were simple white porcelain bottles. Obviously, they should be the medicinal pills that everyone needed. The eyes of the crowd, who were originally thinking that they did not have enough medicinal pills, lit up when they saw this scene. Weren't these medicinal pills what they lacked the most right now? Bailey Hongzhuang had noticed that Gong Jun didn't come in to hunt monsters. Instead, he wandered around the area. In the end, he found a place to sit down. She felt a little strange. After interacting with him for the past few days, she already knew that this fatty was really too lazy to make a move. If it weren't for the fact that he had no other choice, he probably wouldn't be interested in hunting monsters at all. She had never thought that he would be so lazy. Since he had come here, he should have at least made a gesture and killed a few monsters. Instead, he sat down and rested. However, when she heard Gong Jun's shout, her expression changed slightly, and a hint of surprise appeared in her eyes. He looked around carefully. The current situation, fortunately, it was quite suitable for doing business. Sell medicine, sell medicine. Don't miss it. There aren't many people selling medicine in this monster slaying competition. If we miss this opportunity, we won't have another one. The medicinal pills I have here are also limited. It's first come, first served. I'll stop when I'm out. Chapter 65-77. That's why I thought he looked familiar. Isn't he the shopkeeper of the fairy treasure pavilion? Now that you mention it, it's true. Why is he here? Could it be that he's participating in the demon slaughter competition to sell elixirs? It can't be, right? His business has already reached this stage? Why do we care so much about him? As long as we can buy elixirs from him, our urgent needs will be solved. For a moment, many people were eager to make a move. In this situation, they really needed some elixirs. The crowd, who were already tempted, did not dare to stay any longer after hearing Gong Jun's limited number of elixirs. They immediately walked up to Gong Jun. At this time, Gong Jun had already written the price of each elixir with a label. When the crowd saw the price of each elixir, they could not help but frown. "Shopkeeper Gong, the price of your elixirs is much more expensive than outside." "Yes, the price is almost doubled. Isn't he deliberately cheating us? How can we sell it like this? This is too much." Sounds of discussion rang out one after another. Everyone looked at Gong Jun with eyes filled with dissatisfaction. However, Gong Jun did not care about their objections and discussions at all. The smile on his face did not change. He said, "Everyone calm down and listen to me. Since I'm selling elixirs in the Demon Slaughter Mountain range, the price naturally can't be the same as in the shop. I've come so far from the Fairy Treasure Pavilion to the Demon Slaughter Mountain range. I have to pay a little more, right? Even so, you can't raise the price so much. Brother, I've clearly marked the price. If you don't want to buy, I won't force you. How can you say that I'm black-hearted?" Gong Jun smiled. No matter how unpleasant the crowd's words were, he was unmoved. Think about it. The price of elixirs is indeed expensive. But when you're seriously injured, it's even more difficult to get an elixir from other cultivators, right? With this pill, you will be able to obtain even more points. If you are able to enter the top 10, then you will be able to earn many times more. If you don't have enough blood spirit stones, you can pay half of the blood spirit stones and half of the points. In any case, it's only a matter of time before everyone wants to obtain points here. This way you won't be at a disadvantage, right? Listening to Gong Jun's tireless explanation, the crowd, who were originally filled with righteous indignation, was unconsciously moved. This way, although the price is indeed more expensive, other than having to pay some points, the price is still the same. After we recover from our injuries, we'll get more points than what we'll give him. I think this is feasible. Let's not talk about anything else. I really need to buy a pill right now." At this moment, a cultivator took the lead and said, "Give me a healing pill." "All right." Gong Jun happily handed over the healing pill to the other party. "Young master is really smart. This choice is really worth it." After the first person took the lead, the others also began to buy it. After all, the number of elixirs was limited. If they missed the opportunity now, wouldn't it be terrible if they couldn't buy it when they needed it later? Chapter 65-78. Bailey Hongzhuang and company looked at the smiling Gong Jun, who was enjoying himself so much that he forgot about his duties. They were full of admiration. "Master, this Gong Jun is really impressive when it comes to doing business. Everyone is clearly helping him earn points for free, but they still think he's very kind?" Xiaohei was secretly speechless. She originally despised the fatty. He couldn't run fast and could eat more than them. However, from the looks of it, this fellow's ability to earn money was indeed top-notch. In fact, in such an environment, everyone knows very well that the price of the pills definitely can't be the same as outside. Therefore, everyone is already mentally prepared. Gong Jun first doubled the price, causing everyone to be dissatisfied. Then he proposed using points to replace the ordinary fees. Everyone immediately felt that it was much more worth it and was more acceptable. Di Baichen curled his lips slightly. As expected of a cultivator who relied on business to ascend step by step. This fellow came with the intention of doing business from the beginning. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and sighed. However, the corners of her lips couldn't help but curl up. "I suddenly feel that the speed at which we obtain points is probably inferior to his." Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, be it Di Baichen, Xiaohei or Xiaobai, none of them agreed or disagreed. This was because they felt the same way. In just a short period of time, Gong Jun's points had rapidly risen. There were so many cultivators in front of them, and many of them had contributed a few points to Gong Jun. The number was imaginable. If Bai Luchuan had thought of this method earlier, he would have already obtained first place, right? Xiaobai couldn't help but say. The other party had worked hard for so many years and found so many people to help, but the effect was still inferior to Gong Jun's ease in selling the pills. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xiao Bai. You've hit the nail on the head. Fortunately, Bai Luchuan wasn't here. Otherwise, he would have been angered to death when he saw this scene. In fact, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman who were far away were about to die from anger after seeing this scene. Brother Yi, they actually have such a method to obtain cultivation resources. That's just too despicable. Yun Xiaoman clenched her fists, her face full of anger. They had worked so hard to obtain these points, but now, it seemed that Gong Jun's points alone had surpassed the sum of their points. If we had known this would happen, we would have brought more pills to sell. On the one hand, it can increase the sales volume of the Wanbao Pavilion. On the other hand, it can earn us a lot of points. In this way, not only would they not need to expend so much effort, but they would also be the biggest winners once they obtain the top 10 rewards. However, this opportunity now belonged to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Even though they had brought a lot of medicinal pills with them, it was still far from enough to sell. Guan Yi's face was pale. He had never thought of this method before. Now that he saw it, he realized how stupid they were. However, it was useless to think about this now. Brother Yi, what should we do now? Yun Xiaoman couldn't help but ask, I really hope that Brother Bai can come quickly. They really can't stay here any longer. Chapter 65-79. Luchuan left for only 2 days. Even if he is fast, it is impossible for him to come back now. It is impossible to count on him, Guan Yi said slowly. Then are we just going to watch them be arrogant like this? Yun Xiaoman's eyes were full of jealousy and hatred. It has only been half a day and the number of points they have obtained is already very amazing. If we let it continue, it will be too difficult for us to surpass them in a few days. Don't be impatient. In my opinion, even if they came prepared, the number of elixirs can't be too many. Guan Yi looked certain. It won't be long before their elixirs are sold out. This plan will naturally not be able to continue. Hearing this, the angry Yun Xiaoman regained some rationality. She nodded slightly and said, You are right. This is only temporary. You see, Gong Jun has already said that the number of elixirs in his hands is not many. Guan Yi pointed to the distance. In order to attract business, Gong Jun's voice was also very loud, so even if they were far away, they could still hear it clearly. Yun Xiaoman breathed a sigh of relief. I thought they would be well prepared. Now it seems that it is not so exaggerated. At the same time, Xiao Bai also asked, Master, the elixirs brought by Gong Jun seem to be almost sold out? Di Baichen had just killed a monster, took out the demon crystal and put it into his bag. He glanced at Gong Jun and smiled. With this guy's character, he must have brought all the elixirs he can here knowing that he can make a lot of money here. No way? Xiao Bai was slightly stunned. Is the Fairy Treasure Pavilion not doing business? Now most of the cultivators are in the Demon Slaughtering Mountain range. There are very few cultivators who buy elixirs in Xi'an City. What's more, after doing business in the Demon Slaughtering Mountain range, everyone is very familiar with Gong Jun. They know that the things in the Fairy Treasure Pavilion are good. When they go back, the business of the Fairy Treasure Pavilion may be better. Xiao Hei also widened her eyes. Is it possible that Gong Jun is doing this to promote the reputation of the Fairy Treasure Pavilion? Of course. The corners of Di Baichen's lips curled up into a light smile, like a spring breeze. His handsome face suddenly became even more handsome and bright. Don't tell me you still don't know the effects of the pills refined by Hongzhuang? Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai looked at each other. After listening to the male host's explanation, they realized that Gong Jun was really a wolf in sheep's clothing. This seemed to be an extremely simple method, but no one would have thought that he would design so many things into it. He had clearly taken advantage of so many cultivators, yet he was still able to make these people remember him. Wasn't this too frightening? The next day, almost everyone thought that Gong Jun's medicinal pills had been sold out, but they were surprised to find that he continued to set up his stall like yesterday. Don't miss it. There is only one medicinal pill in the Demon Slaughtering Mountain range. The medicinal effect is better than ordinary medicinal pills. You'll know once you buy it. Gong Jun's face was full of smiles, laughing happily like a fox. This was because this place was the most suitable place for cultivators to hunt monsters. Almost every day many cultivators would enter this place. Therefore, even though many cultivators had already bought it yesterday, there were still cultivators continuing to buy it today. Yun Xiaoman was dumbfounded. Didn't his medicinal pills sell out yesterday? Chapter 6580. Shiyun City Immortal Treasure Pavilion. Several attendants looked at the almost empty counter in their shop, and their faces were full of helplessness. You said that the shopkeeper went to participate in the demon slaughter competition and took away almost all the medicinal pills that he could take away, leaving only these few things. How are we going to do business? The shopkeeper said that he went to the demon slaughter competition to do business, so if we sell out all the things in the counter we can go back and rest and wait for him to come back and open the shop. Our business has been getting better recently, so won't we be suppressed by the 1,000 treasure pavilion again? Don't think so much, since the shopkeeper said so, we'll just do it. On the third day, when everyone saw Gong Jun take out the medicinal pills to sell as usual, they understood that this guy said that there were not enough medicinal pills was a lie. What, not enough medicinal pills? It's just a trick to fool everyone to buy medicinal pills. Just from this fatty's wretched smile, they can be sure that the amount of medicinal pills in his hands must be very shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the shameless Gong Jun and couldn't help but chuckle. In just 3 days, Gong Jun has been crowned as a profiteer by everyone, but he doesn't care at all. Madam, the most taboo thing to do business is to be thin-skinned. If you're thin-skinned, you can't do business and you can't make money. I don't have any good points, my biggest advantage is that I'm thick-skinned. Gong Jun said with a smile. I'm not praising you, okay? Bailey Hongzhuang secretly shook her head. This guy's skin is really not comparable to ordinary people, at least she can't reach it. However, she also has to say that this is indeed a good point for Gong Jun. Brother E, we can't continue like this, otherwise our points will definitely not be comparable to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Yun Xiaoman at this moment no longer has any wishful thinking, she can clearly see that this fatty's medicinal pills inventory is extremely shocking. If this continues, the gap between them will be pulled wider and wider. Even if they can't get into the top 10, she doesn't want to see these 3 guys get it. Guan Yi nodded slightly, his eyes turning sinister. The enmity between the two parties had already been formed, and he could not let the other party continue to be so complacent. Otherwise they would be the unlucky ones in the end. His gaze swept across Gong Jun and Bailey Hongzhuang, and a thought gradually formed in his mind. Their method is indeed not bad, but they forgot that they have a fatal flaw. Hearing this, Yun Xiaoman understood that Guan Yi already had an idea. She couldn't help but ask, Brother E, what fatal flaws do they have? There are too few of them. Guan Yi's lips curled up, revealing a hint of viciousness. Yun Xiaoman's eyes lit up. You're right. Guan Yi whispered a few words into Yun Xiaoman's ear. The two of them looked at each other and nodded. Immediately they began to move. That Gong Jun deliberately raised the price so high in order to take advantage of the situation. We worked so hard to obtain the points, so why should he earn them? These are the points that we risked our lives for, but he didn't do anything. When the time comes, if he becomes the first place, wouldn't it be a joke? Don't you feel guilty? Chapter 6581. Whispers of discussion gradually spread out in the crowd. The eyes of the cultivators who originally did not have any thoughts of snatching the treasures lit up after hearing this. Faced with Gong Jun's wealth and points, it was impossible for them not to be envious. As long as they worked together, it would be very difficult to snatch the points away from the other party if they were not willing to do so. However, once they snatched the cultivation resources and pills, it would be very helpful to them. As cultivators in Xi'an City, most people could not turn a blind eye to these cultivation resources. Almost in a short time the news spread. More than 10 cultivators expressed that this method was feasible. There are only 3 of them and they are all in the glorious Sun Realm. As long as we work together, they are definitely no match for us. When the time comes, no matter what this guy has, we'll split it equally. What do you think? No problem. Everyone nodded in agreement. At this moment, Guan Yi said, we have to think of a way to snatch the points. As long as we can get these points, even if we split them equally, our points will be much higher than the others. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes lit up. Who would not be envious of these points? Previously, so many cultivators had bought the pills. Even if it was divided into more than 10 portions, the amount would still be very shocking. Guan Yi, you really came up with a good idea. This way we will surpass many cultivators. Then let's not talk so much. Let's move first. Don't let them get away. Guan Yi sneered. Gong Jun was happily doing business when he suddenly saw a group of people walking toward him aggressively. His smiling face immediately changed. Almost in an instant, Gong Jun put away all the white porcelain bottles and quickly rushed to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. "Boss, madam, it seems like someone is coming to cause trouble for me." Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stopped what they were doing and turned their heads to look ahead. Sure enough, a group of people rushed toward Gong Jun aggressively. Most importantly, they saw two familiar figures among them. I didn't expect Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman to be here as well. These two guys hid so well that I didn't even notice them. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed. When she first heard that scream, she felt it was very familiar. Now that she thought about it, it should be Yun Xiaoman. However, there were simply too many cultivators in the vicinity, and the other party was rather far away, so they did not notice it. It seems that this idea was also from the two of them. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Gong Jun's expression turned ugly. These two fellows are too insidious. They can't compete with me in business, so they want to use this method to harm me. It's too abominable. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Isn't it because you're too good at snatching business? These 3 days I'm afraid they've been angered by you. Madam, now is not the time to laugh at me. Should we hurry and run? Gong Jun's face was nervous. He looked like he couldn't wait to rush out now. Chapter 6582. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Gong Jun felt a burst of anxiety, his face revealing a bit of sullenness. Madam, I spent 3 days of hard work to obtain these points. If I were to give them away just like that, then wouldn't my 3 days of hard work have been in vain? No, this is absolutely not possible. I, Gong Jun, have lived for so many years and I have never done a losing transaction. Gong Jun's face was full of indignation. That gloomy look was as if someone wanted to cut off his flesh. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. This guy actually cared about this the most at this time. His thinking was indeed different from ordinary people. When Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman brought more than 10 cultivators and aggressively rushed in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two, their faces revealed a trace of pride. Di Beichen, as long as you hand over the dawn and points, we will spare your lives today. How about it? Guan Yi's gaze was cold as he looked at the two of them. Until now, he still clearly remembered the scene when the two of them had threatened them. Now the tables had turned. Not long after, the situation had reversed. Guan Yi, you want to first make us willingly hand over the points, then kill us? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slightly raised. After dealing with you a few times, what kind of person you are, we can say that we are very clear about it. Now that you are saying these sanctimonious words, let me ask you, do you believe it yourself? Her clear voice was full of ridicule. Bailey Hongzhuang bluntly exposed his disguise, saying his true thoughts. Guan Yi did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to see through it so clearly, almost without any consideration. I am kindly giving you a chance. If you insist, then I can't do anything about it. Guan Yi said coldly. Your family really likes to use these kind of insidious methods. What? The loss you suffered at the beginning was not enough. Now you want to try again? Guan Yi's face instantly turned cold. Thinking back to how they had suffered defeat in front of these three fellows, he felt that it was really humiliating. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't be too complacent. Yun Xiaoman cursed, if you hadn't poisoned us, would you have been so arrogant? Your ability to play the blame game is really admirable. I don't know who's the one who didn't play his part in doing business, bullying customers and not allowing customers to retaliate? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered, it's just a Wanbao pavilion. Those who don't know would think that your family is the city lord's mansion. Her clear voice was pleasing to the ear, but every word and sentence was like a gem, tit for tat. When everyone heard this, how could they not understand what was going on? It's not like the Wanbao pavilion doesn't bully their customers. I've heard of it before, but I didn't expect to get into big trouble this time. Now there's a good show to watch. Guan Yi has been watching Gong Jun wantonly amass wealth these past few days. I'm afraid he already can't stand it anymore. It's not easy to endure until today to make a move. Gong Jun's actions are really too ostentatious. There are only 3 people in total, yet they still make such a big fuss. It's hard to avoid being attacked by a group of people. Everyone sighed. This was obviously a dispute between the Wanbao Pavilion and the Xianbao Pavilion. No matter who won, it was a good show for them. Chapter 6583. Looking at Yun Xiaoman's rapidly changing face, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also showed a trace of playfulness. Her gaze swept across the people in front of her as she pondered the current situation in her heart. Gong Jun saw this and couldn't help but look at Di Beichen, saying, Boss, are we not going to take the opportunity to run? They have already surrounded us. Unless we kill our way out, it's useless even if you want to run now. Hearing this, Gong Jun was stunned. In such a situation, besides this method, there was really no other way. Do we really have to hand over these points? Gong Jun's face fell, then as if he was going to throw caution to the wind. If we're destined to hand over these points, then I'd rather hand it over to others than to let Guan Yi and them take advantage of us. Guan Yi sneered, now you don't have a choice. That's not necessarily true. Di Beichen said lightly. What are we waiting for? Do it. Guan Yi ordered, his eyes became vicious. Let's do it, whether we can get the points or not, even if we can snatch the elixir, it's still not bad. Seeing this, everyone no longer hesitated, and immediately rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. Gong Jun subconsciously hid behind Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two. In terms of fighting strength, he was no match for them. Boss, I'll go find help. At this moment, Gong Jun no longer had the slightest reluctance. The most important thing was everyone's lives. As for the points, they still had a chance to earn more. Looking at Gong Jun's flustered appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, a trace of a smile appearing between their brows. Alright, don't make Gong Jun anxious, Di Beichen said with a faint smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, patted the pale face of Gong Jun's shoulder and said, don't worry, your boss will take care of you, these points don't need to be handed over to others. Gong Jun originally only felt that it was an extremely critical moment, but at this moment, seeing his boss and madam so calm, for a moment his brain was also a mess. What was this situation? Why was this situation so different from what he had imagined? Not only him, after seeing this scene, Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman were also somewhat confused. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two were actually not anxious. Could it be that their brains were damaged? Brother Yi, what's the situation? Yun Xiaoman was somewhat puzzled. Guan Yi frowned. He didn't know why, but looking at Di Beichen's calm appearance, he felt that there seemed to be something that they had missed. Boom. Vigorous essence energy exploded in this heaven and earth, and the surrounding air seemed to have become oppressive. Even when fighting with monsters, the aura was not bitingly cold to this extent. As more than a dozen cultivators were about to collectively attack, Di Beichen's hearty laughter rang out. How long are you planning to watch this show? As soon as these words came out, the surrounding crowd was dumbfounded for a moment, not understanding what was going on. Guan Yi and the others also looked around, secretly wondering if they had helpers. This is impossible. According to the information we have investigated, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen came to Shiyun City together. There is no one else. Naturally, there is no helper here. Chapter 65-84. Guan Yi's face was full of disbelief as he sneered. Things have already come to this point and you're still trying to be mysterious. Do you think you can use this method to divert our attention and escape? Stop dreaming, it's impossible. As Guan Yi's voice fell, the cultivators who were originally observing the surroundings finally understood. It turned out that they wanted to create a diversion, but unfortunately they had already been seen through. Gong Jun was also nervous. They had already been here for 3 days and he had never seen Boss greet or interact with anyone. Now he actually said that there were helpers. Was this a joke? Just then a playful voice sounded, Beichen, it's rare that you're in trouble. We're helping you, so you should at least give us some reward, right? As soon as the voice fell, everyone saw 2 figures quickly fly to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Upon closer inspection, it was a man and a woman. Their eyes were filled with joyful smiles as if they were very familiar friends. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. As far as I know, the pills you have were all refined by Hongzhuang. Are you unhappy? Xiren's expression stiffened. He looked at him helplessly and said, I really can't negotiate with you. Alright, you win. You've been losing for so many years. You should get used to it. Shangguan Ying smiled and excitedly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Hongzhuang, we finally meet. I have no choice but to disobey master's orders. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. In fact, they had already seen Xiren and Shangguan Ying the day before yesterday. Everyone just exchanged glances and no one took the initiative to communicate. After all, Master had asked them to train separately. They naturally had to do their best. Even if they saw them, they would treat them as ordinary people. But they never thought that such a situation would happen today. They could no longer continue to pretend that they didn't see anything. The situation. I believe that even if Master knew, he wouldn't blame us. Shangguan Ying smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, her expression relaxed. Gong Jun looked at the 2 people who suddenly appeared, and a trace of joy appeared on his face. He didn't expect that there would really be helpers. Guan Yi didn't expect such a situation. He thought to himself, are these two guys crazy? There was a huge disparity in the number of people on both sides. Even if they had 2 more people, they were still not a match at all. It's just 2 more people and you're already so proud. This is just dragging 2 more people down with you. Yun Xiaoman sneered, and here I thought it was something amazing. Xiu Xiu's group of 5, wanting to gain a foothold in Shiyun City is very difficult, and yet they are proud of it. How laughable. However, just as Yun Xiaoman's voice fell, another 2 figures appeared beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Sister, we're here. Bai Li Yanche and Linger were overjoyed. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Yanche, you're here? These 2 guys are really haunting. Sister spared their lives at that time. I didn't expect that they would come looking for trouble again. They really won't cry until they see the coffin. Bai Li Yanche narrowed his eyes. He had already heard about this matter before. He thought that it was over, but he didn't expect that these 2 guys would come up with a devious idea again. Chapter 65-85. Sure enough, they are brother and sister. Their appearance is really amazing. I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have a brother. I already noticed this man here 2 days ago, but I didn't see any interaction between them, so I thought they didn't know each other, but I didn't expect them to be so close. Didn't you guys just hear? This seems to be their master's order. So, there shouldn't be anyone else, right? Everyone's eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Their expressions became very interesting. Previously there were only 3 people, but in the blink of an eye, there were already 7 people. If there were other people, then the number would be much less than Guan Yi's group. The cultivators who were roped in by Guan Yi felt a little complicated when they saw this scene. They didn't think that the other party would have helpers. Moreover, these people seemed to have an extraordinary bearing. They acted so casually as if they didn't put them in their eyes at all. This feeling was very unpleasant. Guan Yi was also a bit stunned. He had never heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had relatives and friends here. Yun Xiaoman stared at Bai Li Yanche in a daze. Different from Di Beichen's shocking celestial being, this man revealed a trace of an evildoer's aura. This brother and sister pair, suddenly a trace of regret rose in her heart. If she knew it would be like this, she wouldn't have found trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang. You're the one who won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Guan Yi flew into a rage out of humiliation. The other side's helpers appearing one after another made him extremely unhappy. Even if you add them together, it's only 7 people. What's there to be arrogant about? The next moment, Guan Yi said to the people beside him, attack. 2 against 1, do you think we can't beat them? It's good that these people delivered themselves to our door. Let's take their cultivation resources. Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. Just Gong Jun alone was already rich enough, and they heard that Xiren's medicinal pills were all given by Bailey Hongzhuang, so the amount would not be small. If these 7 people were taken care of, everyone's storage rings would be rich. Do it. A cold glint flashed in Di Beichen's eyes as boundless killing intent swept out. When Xiren was the first to respond. It just so happens that I haven't exercised in a long time. The battle broke out in an instant. Almost at the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' auras changed. Unlike their previous carefree attitude, a strong murderous aura spread out from their bodies. Their sharp eyes were filled with murderous intent, forming a sharp contrast. Feeling the other party's terrifying killing intent, Guan Yi and the others couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. They felt that these people were even more ferocious than when they fought in front of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. Ding ding ding. Bailey Hongzhuang clashed with the sharp sword in her hand. Her body was like an agile snake, and every move she made was fatal. His phoenix eyes were cold and the power of darkness lingered around his body. It was a stark contrast with his white robes. The aura of darkness lingered, like a shadow following the body. The man originally didn't take the slender Bailey Hongzhuang seriously, but after this exchange he realized that this woman was not as weak as she looked. On the contrary, her strength was terrifyingly strong. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang flew out and kicked the man's chest fiercely. Chapter 65-86. Save me quick. The man looked anxiously at the person next to him. The other man did not dare to delay and jumped between the 2 of them, blocking Bailey Hongzhuang's next attack. Faced with the man's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately diverted her attention and changed the direction of the sharp sword in her hand. The swift and fierce sword energy was like a treasured sword that had been born into the world. Its sharpness was so oppressive that one had no choice but to dodge. Otherwise, if the sword energy were to land on one's body would be sliced in half. Just as the man retreated to avoid the attack, Bailey Hongzhuang increased her speed and charged towards the first man. The man who had fallen to the ground heaved a sigh of relief with great difficulty. However, he suddenly sensed the terrifying aura appearing once again. The swift and fierce sword energy continued to grow larger in his eyes. Slash. The sound of a sword piercing a body rang out. Even though the sound was almost inaudible due to the fluctuations from the battle, the scene fell into the eyes of the surrounding crowd. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly pulled out her sharp sword. Her face was as cold as ice and did not contain a single trace of emotion. In the face of fresh blood, her indifference caused one's heart to tremble. This Bailey Hongzhuang has actually used a killing move right off the bat. This is basically a one-hit kill. She doesn't even give the other party a chance to speak. Actually, this is very normal. Didn't this fellow want Bailey Hongzhuang's life in the first place? She's giving him a taste of his own medicine. This is her reaping what she sowed. Even though the man had spoken calmly, the crowd could not help but feel apprehensive upon witnessing this scene. They do not know why, but when they had first seen Bailey Hongzhuang, they had thought that she was just an ordinary woman. However, after she had made her move, they suddenly realized that this woman seemed to have gone through a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Her indifference towards death was rather terrifying. When Bailey Hongzhuang turned around again, the man noticed a flash of murderous intent in her eyes and could not help but panic. Relying on their own cultivation to ascend to this place, everyone had to go through a series of battles to reach this place. His hands were also stained with a lot of blood, but for some reason, this woman gave him an indescribable sense of panic. Just when everyone's attention was on Bailey Hongzhuang, another exclamation was heard. The two men were unable to withstand Di Beichen's attacks and were defeated. They had only fought for a short period of time, but the two of them had already been defeated. This result was hard for everyone to believe. It can't be? Was this man really that strong? How many rounds has it been? I think Guan Yi is really in big trouble this time. It's not a loss for him to fall into the hands of these two people. Since these fellows have a master and their strength is so shocking, could they be people from the immortal domain who came out to train? Hearing the speculation of a cultivator, everyone's eyes lit up. This situation was indeed very likely. There were many cultivators in the immortal domain and many of them were also in the Radiant Sun realm. Under such circumstances, many people would come out to train. If this was really the case, then they were really existences that they could not afford to offend. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman's faces turned pale. They had never thought of this situation. If this was really the case, then wouldn't it be terrible? Guan Yi, are you deliberately trying to harm us? Chapter 6587. Young Master D, today I have eyes but fail to recognize empty Tai, please let me go. The man quickly begged for mercy. I only attacked you because I believed Guan Yi's slanderous words. I have eyes but fail to recognize empty Tai. I won't dare to do it again. Even though begging in front of so many people is very shameful, but after fighting for a while, he clearly understood how big the gap between them is. Guan Yi saw this scene and couldn't help but become anxious. In any case, you are also an expert. This is just a fight and you are begging for mercy. Aren't you too spineless? If you didn't say that their strength is not strong, why would I agree to your request? The man's face is sullen. At this moment he is also very angry. If he knew the situation would be like this, no matter what, he wouldn't have agreed. Facing the man's begging for mercy, Di Beichen's eyes are indifferent. Unfortunately, I will not forgive you. As soon as his voice fell, Di Beichen's sword suddenly pierces out, not giving the other half a chance. Shock. Everyone looked at this scene in astonishment. They never thought that Di Beichen would be so decisive. The other side clearly apologized, but he didn't give them any chance. How can you do this? The other man quickly retreated a few steps, looking at Di Beichen in disbelief. They clearly begged for mercy, but Di Beichen still didn't give them any face. If it wasn't for the slightest bit of kindness, the two of them wouldn't have lived until now. However, after I let them go, they tried to find trouble with me. Rather than that, it's better to kill them all. The cold and hard voice is full of majesty. It's obviously a very indifferent voice, but when it falls on everyone's heart, it's as heavy as 1,000 pounds. If a second ago they thought that Di Baichen's action was a bit excessive, now they have to admit that what he said is indeed reasonable. Kindness, for them, is the emotion that they should not have. Once they made a wrong decision, it would leave them with endless trouble. Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman look at each other, their hearts can't help but panic. The Di Baichen in front of them is even colder and more indifferent than before. His words are full of decisiveness. Baichen, you're right. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. They didn't want to completely offend the Wanbao Pavilion, so as to avoid even greater trouble. But now, it seemed that he shouldn't have had such thoughts in the first place, because there were some people that you couldn't avoid even if you wanted to. Rather than being constantly wary of their secret schemes, it would be better to kill them directly to prevent future troubles. As for more troubles, he would deal with them as they came. He would just have to overcome them one by one. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Baichen, who had a murderous look on his face, instantly melted. The gentleness on his face was even more frightening. With just a momentary change in expression, everyone understood what Di Baichen was thinking. When Xiren and the others were not weak in the slightest, but their speed was not as fast as Di Baichen's duo. Baichen, when you're done with your side, come help me. At this time, don't talk too much with them. Xiren called out. Hearing this, Di Baichen chuckled. Didn't you say before that you wanted to compete with me? Now you actually want my help? These two guys in front of me are definitely stronger than the two you dealt with. Their moves are really too sinister. Chapter 65-88. However, when the two of them joined forces, one of them would always sneak up on him while he was unprepared. This feeling of being tied down was extremely uncomfortable. All right. Di Baichen's expression was indifferent. His figure swept over to Xiren's side. It was clearly more than 10 people besieging 7 people. However, in such a huge battle circle, everyone felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not pressured at all. If there was an exception, it would be Gong Jun. Gong Jun's combat experience was obviously not as good as the others. Whether it was his combat skills or speed, he paled in comparison. However, although he was fat, he was quite agile in dodging. Following behind Di Baichen, he simply dodged left and right. If he could not handle it, he would rely on his boss to protect him. That completely destroyed the aura of the entire team. However, it also became the highlight of the entire scene. Boss, you guys are really amazing. Not only are you guys training, your friend Mian is also amazing. He can actually take on 2 people at once. Gong Jun's face was full of amazement. Previously, his heart was about to jump out of his throat. He did not expect the real situation to be much better than he thought. If you have time in the future, you should train well too. Di Baichen looked at the agile fatty beside him. A trace of helplessness appeared in his eyes. Others may not have noticed it, but his observation was very obvious. Although Gong Jun had been hiding all this time, he would take advantage of the opportunity to make a sneaky move, causing the other party to be flustered. In fact, his eyesight was also very good. Gong Jun's face was bitter. Boss, I still prefer doing business. I'll leave this kind of fighting and killing to you. If I'm not around, what will you do? That won't happen. Gong Jun shook his head. I will always follow you, boss. I will never leave. With Di Baichen's help, Xiren broke through the opponent's attack. After that, he looked at Di Baichen in surprise and said, Baichen, we haven't seen each other for a while and you've already taken in a follower? Yes. Seeing Di Baichen admit it, Xiren was even more surprised. As Di Baichen's good friend, he knew his character very well. Taking in underlings wasn't a big deal for others, but it was too strange for Di Baichen. You're actually taking in underlings? Did the sun rise from the west today? Without waiting for Di Baichen to speak, Gong Jun came forward and said, Brother, that's because I'm different. What's different about you? Xiren asked, puzzled. I'm different in every way. Gong Jun's face was calm. He raised his eyebrows and said proudly, Have you seen a fatty as cute as me? You really didn't? Xiren's lips twitched. Although he didn't understand the ins and outs of the whole thing, he could vaguely understand a little from Gong Jun's appearance. As the saying goes, evil women are afraid of pestering men. Baichen, you're actually afraid? Xiren sighed and shook his head. Depraved, really depraved. Public morals are deteriorating day by day, people's hearts are not what they used to be. Shut up. Shangguan Yingying glanced at Xiren. Can't you see that he has more points than you? When Ziran subconsciously glanced at Gong Jun's scoreboard. With this glance he was also somewhat dumbfounded. He had seen Gong Jun do business with his own eyes and guessed that the number of points would not be small. But now it was a little shocking. Chapter 65-89. I'm not praising you, okay? When Ziran rolled his eyes. This guy is really not modest at all. You guys don't seem to be discussing this. Bai Li Yanche looked at Ziran and Gong Jun suddenly talking about this and couldn't help but remind them. All right. When Ziran suddenly realized, just looking at you, I actually forgot about this important matter. The most important thing now is to get rid of these people. Following the fall of a few cultivators, the others couldn't help but feel flustered. Because they found out that these people actually had the ability to fight 1 against 2. Don't look at how it was just 2 people. Everyone was of the same cultivation level, so their strength was naturally not much different. Under this kind of situation, to be able to fight against 2 people, that's very impressive. If this continues, I'm afraid we'll all lose our lives here. One of them couldn't help but say. Previously, more than 10 people joined hands, but they still couldn't gain the upper hand. Now that 5 people had fallen, they were even more suppressed. Not long later, they would all have to give up their lives here. Let's run? Since begging for mercy didn't work, then they might as well take the opportunity to run. At least they could still keep their lives. Not knowing who said it first, everyone seemed to have made up their minds at the same time. Without hesitation they ran in all directions. Today they were tempted by wealth and not because of blood feud. If they lost their lives here, it's really not worth it. When Guan Yi and Yun Xiaoman saw the others running away, their faces instantly turned pale. Brother Yi, let's run too. Yun Xiaoman pulled Guan Yi and quickly retreated. The others and Di Beichen didn't have a deep grudge against each other. But if the 2 of them didn't leave quickly, then they would definitely die today. Chase after them? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. Since these guys came to seek death, then don't even think about running away. Today's matter was already high profile enough. If they wanted to prevent future troubles, then they had to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Let these people see the price of offending them clearly. If they wanted to cause trouble in the future, they would have to consider the consequences first. Everyone's figures flew away, but they did not blindly chase after Yun Xiaoman and her brother. Instead, they left them to Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. With their strength, dealing with these 2 people did not take much effort at all. Yun Xiaoman and her brother did not go far before they were blocked by Di Beichen. What? You still want to run? Guan Yi looked at Di Beichen in front of him and Bailey Hongzhuang behind him. His expression turned ugly. What do you want to do? What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang retorted. Of course I'll kill you. Her voice was cold and emotionless. Bailey Hongzhuang held her sword and pointed it at Guan Yi. After what happened back then, I had originally planned to just let it go. However, you all refused to budge. Since that's the case, we can only fight to the death. I don't understand what you mean. Guan Yi pretended not to understand. This matter is because your table manners are too ugly. So many people have decided to take action. We are only 2 of them. Seeing Guan Yi still being careless at this time, Bailey Hongzhuang found it funny. Our identity cards, weren't you the ones who did it? Guan Yi's expression changed slightly. He knew that the 2 of them had already seen through everything. Originally he still had a trace of hope. But now it seemed that everything was meaningless. Chapter 65-90. Guan Yi wanted to stall for time and think of a plan, but he never thought that Di Beichen would attack him without saying a word, not giving him any chance to delay. Bailey Hongzhuang also attacked Yun Xiaoman. The other side's repeated attempts to trip her up had already angered her. Today she must take their lives. Di Beichen, don't think that you're so great just because you're slightly stronger. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. You may not be able to kill me now. Guan Yi's face showed a trace of ruthlessness. He had been in seclusion for so long and his strength had improved a little. Although he was defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang in front of the Thousand Treasures Pavilion, it was not a defeat where he could not fight back. Now that he was fighting to the death, he might be able to take the opponent's life. You think too much. Di Beichen's understatement directly blocked Guan Yi's clamor. The most important thing was that the other side did not put him in his eyes at all, which angered Guan Yi. He was not happy. This guy was nothing special, but he was so arrogant in front of him. You're courting death. Vigorous spirit energy exploded from Guan Yi's body. At this moment, the blue color proved that his attribute was water. Essence energy whizzed out, transforming into a massive wave that surged downwards. Di Beichen's figure flashed and stood on top of the wave. At the same time, the dark energy surged and turned into countless palms. Seeing this, Guan Yi's eyes showed a trace of panic. At first, he did not pay too much attention to it. Now that he saw it, he realized that Di Beichen was of the dark attribute. This guy must know that his dark attribute identity cannot be revealed, so when he fought before he did not use his spirit energy in a large area. He only hid it between his fists and feet, making it difficult for others to detect. Guan Yi's mind flickered, and the huge waves in the sky turned into a wall, blocking the hand of darkness. Di Beichen's right hand suddenly stretched out and the countless dark palms suddenly gathered together and fiercely slammed into the water wall. Bang! A loud sound spread out as seawater splashed everywhere, giving off splashing sounds. However, that hand held onto Guan Yi tightly, clamping him to the ground and unable to move. Guan Yi struggled madly, but he found that the strength of this dark hand was astonishing. No matter how hard he tried to escape, he found that he couldn't move at all. Seeing the white figure getting closer and closer to him, Guan Yi's face showed a trace of fear. Back then, Di Beichen had always been fighting with his uncle. It was only now that he realized how strong this man was. It had only been a short while, but he had already completely crushed him. What do I have to do for you to let me go? Guan Yi looked at Di Beichen nervously. At this moment, his heart was filled with regret. If it wasn't for Yun Xiaoman and by Liu Chuan's instigation, he wouldn't have angered the two of them after the matter was over. Now, the grudge was getting bigger and bigger, and in the end it ended up like this. Di Beichen looked down at Guan Yi condescendingly. Previously, I gave you a way out, but you didn't take it. Now, I can only send you to your death. No, I won't dare to do it again. Please let me go. Guan Yi's face was pale as he begged for mercy. No matter how many cultivation resources you want, I will find a way to gather them for you. As long as you let me go, I beg you. I beg you. Chapter 6591. No matter how Guan Yi begged for mercy, Di Beichen remained unmoved. The moment his voice fell, his sword had already ruthlessly pierced Guan Yi's heart. Seeking his own death, no one can spare him. Leaving this kind of guy alive is tantamount to bringing more danger to the people around him. This kind of thing will not happen again. Brother Yi. Yun Xiaoman's face was pale, her eyes were filled with horror as she watched Guan Yi lose his life. Her mind was blank. If others died, she didn't care at all, but seeing Guan Yi die with her own eyes, she found it hard to accept. Bang! A terrible force fiercely fell on her body, sending her flying. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flashed and arrived in front of Yun Xiaoman. Guan Yi is already dead. You can go down and accompany him. Bailey Hongzhuang, let me go, okay? Yun Xiaoman spat out a mouthful of blood, but she didn't care about the injuries on her body. She quickly knelt in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, her hands clinging to the latter's white clothes, her body trembling. I don't dare anymore. I don't dare anymore. Last time you said the same thing. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. The grudge between them was originally caused by Yun Xiaoman. Whether it was the conspiracy in the tunnel or the alliance just now, if they hadn't been prepared, they would have lost their lives. This kind of guy without a doubt will die. The sword in her hand stabbed down without hesitation. Yun Xiaoman's face also showed a trace of despair. Ding! A throwing knife blocked Bailey Hongzhuang's attack, followed by a roar full of anger. Bailey Hongzhuang, you dare! A clear shadow appeared in front of Yun Xiaoman, blocking Bailey Hongzhuang's sword. Looking up at the man in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes slightly raised. She had never seen this person before, but from the other side's aura, the other side's strength is not ordinary, not a simple person. At this time, the roar continued from behind, but with a trace of concern. Xiaoman, are you okay? Yun Xiaoman originally thought that she was going to die, but she never thought that at this critical moment, someone would actually save her. Suddenly, it was as if she saw a life-saving straw, and her whole person was relieved. She timidly hid behind the green-robed man and turned to look behind her. Her eyes immediately lit up when she saw who it was. Brother Bai, you're here. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen turned their eyes. When they saw that it was Bai Luchuan, a strange look appeared in their eyes. Who would have thought that this guy would come at such a good time? If he had been a little late, Yun Xiaoman's little life would have been gone. Bai Luchuan quickly walked to Yun Xiaoman's side. How are you? Yun Xiaoman shook her head with tears in her eyes. Her sobbing appearance made Bai Luchuan's heart soften. They killed Brother Yi. Hearing this, Bai Luchuan's eyes turned slightly, and as expected, he noticed Guan Yi's corpse not far away. With this look, his pupils instantly dilated. He never thought that he would only go back once, and when he came back, Guan Yi had already lost his life. How dare you? Bai Luchuan angrily rebuked. His face became ferocious because of anger. Do you know that Guan Yi is from Wanbao Pavilion? Kill him, and you will be hunted down by Wanbao Pavilion. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.